get this started. Let's call to order the meeting of the St. Augustine Port Waterway and Beach District, June 15th, 2021. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary, could you call roll, please?
Commissioner Rivers?
Here.
Commissioner Rivers?
Here.
Sorry. Commissioner Way?
Here.
Commissioner Brown? Here. Commissioner Flowers?
Here.
Commissioner West?
Here.
Great. Adoption and approval of agenda. I have a modification to make. I believe the only outstanding business on the kayak launch that we left off of from last meeting was, Jane, you were going to reach out to the City Commission. Do you have an update there?
Yeah, I did speak to Barbara Blonder. They're considering, they're still evaluating it, but there are a lot of hurdles from the city's perspective as well. But I do think we should continue to work with the city. I don't know if we can perhaps get an update from the city during this meeting, but that's where things were with her.
Great. So beyond that, I don't think there's anything else that we need to discuss. So I would move to adopt the agenda, but
I had some stuff I wanted to speak about on that from some of our constituents, was all. It wasn't much, but just a few sentences.
Okay, then never mind. We can keep that on. We'll keep it quick. Does anybody else have any other proposed modifications or problems with the agenda, or are we ready to adopt it?
Move to adopt.
Have a
I'll
second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Public comment. I believe we have any members of the public here today. Government representative comments?
I'll comment after the lady.
We go last.
Hi, good afternoon. Just a few items. This Friday is the fine presentations for the fiscal year 22 grant. Sydney Lindblad, St. Johns County Parks and Recreation. So we'll be going down to Cocoa Beach on Friday, and staff will be presenting the 3 applications, construction for Palm Valley West Boat Ramp, Palm Valley East, and then our Doug Crane project as well. We had the Old School Kingfish Tournament this past weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I haven't gotten the exact numbers of boaters that participated. Last year it was just one day and it was over 600 boats, so it was definitely busy. For our beaches, we had Memorial Day weekend was extremely busy. We brought in over $40,000 just for that weekend. We also saw some mandated 4-wheel drive conditions per the Sheriff's Office. All of our south beaches saw that on all of our ramps. But with the rain, we are back to just 4-wheel drive recommended. And then that's all I have.
I heard Doug was leaving.
Yes, Doug's last day is Friday.
Okay.
They've had the past 2 weeks interviews for the new director position, but I don't have anything further on that.
Why not you?
No, I'm okay. And the only other thing, the Volano dredge was approved by the board today on our consent agenda, so we are moving forward with that project.
Was LAMP on the county commission agenda? Or did that get
Yes.
approved?
Believe it did.
Okay.
Can I ask
It
a-
went 4-1. Jeff Smith.
Jeff, of course, yeah. The 40,000 in revenue, where, I'm sorry, but where does that revenue go? Does it go to Parks and Rec?
It goes back into the beach fund. So all of, we pay for law enforcement, both through the City of St. Augustine Beach Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, our basic operations through our staff, also our trash and recycling contracts and our restroom cleaning contracts, all the toll staff or night staff. So it just goes right back into the beach fund.
That Volano dredging contract, do you recall that they came back to us with a much higher price, it almost doubled? Do you recall what the first bid, what the first?
We just went off of our previous dredge in the Volano Basin, which was quite a few years ago. So it was just kind of based on those numbers. And then now that we have that new testing of the soil, it just skyrocketed.
Okay, but do you recall what the first number was out? Because we approved one first bidding project, and then they came back with another 200. You don't recall what that first amount was?
I want to say it was 250.
Okay,
I'm correct on that one.
okay. Do you happen to know what the minimum amount is before you have to bid out a contract? We had talked about that before.
I would have to double check with our purchasing policy. I believe anything under 300,000, you can use a continuing contractor, and then anything above that has to go out to bid.
Okay, thank you.
Jim Piggott, City of St. Augustine. The city, Corey specifically, is going down to Cocoa Beach also for our salt run dredging defense on Friday. I think the county and us were first time ever, we're first out of the chutes, if you will, so we should get down here and get back. And regarding the kayak launch, Commissioner West, I think you're talking about the Riberia Street?
May Street.
May Street, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about May Street other than what I've already said.
Right.
In planning and building, I don't know anything other than that.
The city hall or city commissioners didn't seem to know anything about it. We've been talking about it 2 years, so it was, I thought you were taking that information back to them, and I was mistaken.
Just talking to David Burcham, who was here in November, and he gave you all a briefing of what would need to go through before it goes to
None of the
our-
city commissioners knew about it until she brought it up to Ms. Blonder, and
Typically,
to the
that has to
manager.
go for the lower boards, planning and building, before it even comes to the commission level.
okay.
John Regan is well briefed
And
on
I
it.
had briefed the assistant city manager on it.
I just spoke to her today, and I'm glad, she does know about it now. It's just, I'm just a little dismayed that it's been going on for 2 years, but I am glad that people are getting on board, and thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Hold up. The salt run defense, that's with the Corps, or,
Find, right?
No, that's fine.
That's with fine,
The Florida
okay.
Inland Navigational District.
okay.
For 150,000, where you're matching it with a 50,000.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
No, you can do it first. Going last.
Sergeant Jerry Whitehead, San Augustine Police Department, Marine Unit. I haven't been here in a while. Some of you I know, some of you I don't. The Port Authority is kind enough to give us overtime funds, and I'm going to start reporting what we've been doing with some of them. I have trained 7 police officers now, other than myself, to drive the boat, so they're starting to take it out. And just in the past 2 weeks, they've used 20 hours of your overtime. They wrote 16 citations, vessel stop citations. They were dispatched to 7 calls, and they had 4 citizens assists. So that all came out of your funding. That didn't come out of our funding. And that's all I have as far as this aspect. I'll be back in a little while with something else. Questions? You didn't?
I know, we've got your,
Okay, you got it? All right, cool.
Thank you.
you don't want to discuss that?
No, that's on the agenda.
Oh, that's correct.
I have
It
to wait
is.
my turn.
You have multiple critter cops today. No, over here. On this side. Thank you. Lieutenant Steve Zukowski, Fish and Wildlife Commission, Patrol Supervisor for Coastal Flagler and St. Johns Counties. And today I have with me Officer Steve Chamberlain. He's going to be joining the squad in about a week and a half. And he's transferring from the inland squad down to Flagler County. And this is Officer Jessica Dodd. You've been here before, correct? Is your FTO? No. So she is, she's our most junior officer. She has completed her year-long probation a couple weeks ago. So she is now permanently part of the crew, for good or bad. So we're gonna find out. So, I mean, for good, actually, for us. So,
Yeah.
all right. So we'll start off with boating safety, since that's been the most activity we've had since the last meeting. I just got back. I just got back to work last week. I'd been off for almost 6 months for my shoulder surgery, so I'm trying to get caught up on a few things. So Memorial Day weekend, we'll start with that. We didn't have any significant boating accidents for that one, correct? And I don't think we had any boating under influence arrests. Did you have anything, Deputy Braddock, for that weekend?
No, it was.
Okay. So it was pretty well, the boaters are pretty well behaved. They were many of them out there because of they're trying to, the restrictions for the last year is because of COVID, things like that. So some people are starting to get out more and more and recreate once again. So that was actually a fairly mild boating weekend, particularly to start a boating season. However, 4 or 5 days later, we had the Boater Skip Day on the St. Johns River, which was, and that is an annual event now, and that was on Thursday, Friday the 4th, correct? Yes, it was a Friday. Yeah. Right, okay. That was also National Donut Day at Dunkin' Donuts, so if you bought a coffee, you got a free donut. So I brought some munchkins to the officers who were involved. So we had a multi-agency, for our part, we had a multi-agency detail set up. We had deputies, in addition to Fish and Wildlife officers, we had deputies from St. Johns County Sheriff's Marine Unit were there. And also, we didn't have any Coast Guard people, did we, for that? We did. We had some Coast Guard people come down from Station Mayport and get on our boats. And what happens with this event is there are multiple boaters, and what's the sandbar over there in Clay County, just across the river? Do you remember the name of it?
Point.
Pardon?
Bayard Point.
Bayard Point. There's a big sandbar, and Rick will show you a picture in a minute about what all these officers had to deal with and the great job that they did on that day. So we had the Northeast region, our area, participating, North Central region officers from Clay County participating, Sheriff's Office, St. Johns County, Coast Guard from Station Mayport, and any other agencies?
FHP.
Oh, FHP, yes, FHP also. Because in addition to boating under influence, there's also some driving under influence arrests that were made. So I'm going to walk around and show you what the officers were dealing with, and Officer Dodd is going to tell you about the stats and their experience out there, because these two officers are actually out there that day. So this is the number of boaters in the area that we're looking at.
All right, so,
There's a lot of frivolity going on also.
Where's that now? We're not.
Bayard Point,
Okay.
Shands Bridge. On the
Yeah,
other side of Shands Bridge.
right, we're 16 crosses into Clay County, right? It's a nightmare out there. Ugh.
Lord.
Where was
Okay, all right.
Where was this picture
hold,
taken?
everyone tan stuff.
From a helicopter. Where? I mean, where in? Well, probably right above the boaters here by Shands Bridge. Just south
Oh,
of Shands
this
Bridge.
is the river, St. John's
Yes,
River.
St. John's
Okay.
River.
Okay.
Is it a party going on?
So basically, it's just everybody who used to skip school back in the day. They now are adults, and so they skip work once a year to do Boater Skip Day on the river. And so there's a lot of people from Clay County, St. Johns, and Jacksonville, Duval area as well, and they all come down and converge on this one specific spot. If I could describe it to you, it would just be like a bunch of boats stacked like a deck of cards.
Yeah,
in a
but they
very-
don't drink beer or anything when they're out there, do they?
Oh, no ma'am, no ma'am. No beer, no drugs, no fights. Just a bunch of adults having a good time. So, but no, actually, seriously, it's grown to the size that it is now, and this year we had probably the largest police force that we've had present at the event, and it's actually helped things a lot. So last year there was a bunch of fights and arrests made for that. This year there were not any of that. It happened, most everything that we did this year, there was one boating accident, but that ended up being on the Clay County side on the return back from the event. And then we all did BUI arrests. So FWC as an agency between us and the Jacksonville area FWC, because they're a different region than us, but between us we had 8 BUI arrests. Then who was it? And then DUIs, we had FHP do one of those, and then St. Johns County Sheriff's Office had a DUI as well. Our whole purpose of being out there is, boaters are not necessarily as serious about drinking on the water. You are allowed to drink and drive in a boat. You are just not allowed to be intoxicated. The problem is people who drink on boats then put those boats on a trailer and drive that trailer home. So now not only are you a drunk driver, but you're a drunk driver with a giant trailer behind you. So we were able to kind of clamp down on this event. Like I said, it was the largest police presence. It kept everybody pretty calm. But when I say this is like one crazy party on the river, it is one crazy party. And they were saying that they're trying to it is relevant to us and to y'all because they are now also trying to make this an event on the ICW side in the Matanzas area. So.
At Matanzas down here, at Fort Matanzas?
Yes, at the inlet. They're trying to make another event, essentially. And it's not like an official event. It's not sanctioned by a company or anything. It's basically kind of like the Trump flotilla was. It was like somebody had an idea, they all get together, and everybody shows up. Yeah,
So when
Facebook.
you're patrolling the area and stuff, are you like just cruising around in between all the boats, or you just?
Why don't you tell me you guys doing?
Yeah, I was gonna say, mostly we stay on the outside. Like, it's so cram-packed that we did have a medical emergency where one of the fire departments had to go in there, and on the way in, they collected the anchor of about 5 boats that they're, dragging along. But this was a serious medical emergency, they had to get in there. And so generally what we do is we patrol the perimeter. When people leave, we do safety inspections, so we're allowed to do those. We just make sure everybody has their life jackets, whistles, fire extinguishers, all that kind of good jazz. And then if in the course of that investigation we find signs of impairment, then we will go into a BUI investigation just to make sure that the people are going to get home safe. And the first kind of group of people, it's like layers to an onion. The first group of people, they kind of hang out on the outside. They generally leave at a reasonable hour. But the closer you get to the middle, those people pretty much you just pick out a boat, and they have been drinking, since the earliest boat that got out there was they left Jacksonville at like 4 in the morning, so they were to the sandbar at 6, and then they drank until the sun went down.
I mean, it's definitely already quite the wild scene at the Matanzas Inlet on the weekends on a hot summer day. So what are the resources that are going into that? Is there a presence there on the weekends?
So yes, so essentially our agency as well as St. Johns County and we basically patrol down there on the weekends. Also the National Park, they have water cops as well. And so they patrol the water, but they also patrol the beaches there because that property you're actually not allowed to drink on.
Right.
So they essentially manage that as best they can as well. So that's kind of the resources that are down in that area.
I wouldn't stick my foot in the water there and
No kidding, yeah.
one big pee party.
I met you at the Lighthouse Boat Ramp when my boys were heading out to go fishing, so it's good to see you again.
Was it me or was it Megan? So there is another one who's just like me, but she's about a foot taller.
Sitting in her truck, so I don't know.
We're twins, basically. Yeah. Well, it's good to see you again.
Sir, nice to meet you all.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you.
With everyone. Let me just finish up here real quick. Thank you, JD. All right, so one reason why we mentioned the boat or skip day, because even though it's not in the area of responsibility for the port, as Officer Dodd mentioned, and also Deputy Braddock, it may be coming this way at some point in time, and there may be a lot of fun and frivolity going on, but there's also mayhem occasionally. So we'll be ready for it if it does happen to migrate over here. Any more questions
Who
about?
decides where they go?
They do.
They just,
They'll have to deal with the current
Social media is a
down in
wonderful thing.
Matanzas.
Right.
So,
That current rips through there.
and people get
Fill
pinned.
the anchorage completely. I mean, that amount of
I
boats.
pulled 20 people out of that water. They jump in to cool off.
Yeah.
And they come up and they're 50 yards from their
Sucked
boat.
under the bridge.
Yep.
Yeah, we're waiting for boats to get pinned under the bridge. That'll be another interesting response to that. So, so that's what we have for boating safety right now. Derelict vessels, there's not any new news on derelict vessels. We're still working through the ones that are, have been submitted to the PD, if there are any more to be pulled. I don't know, I'll have to look at that, but I haven't seen any new information since I've been back last Thursday on that. Fisheries, don't really have any updates on fisheries. So, have we seen anything from offshore, or no?
You could say they do have the snapper dates out in July.
Oh, okay, and they are when? So, yes, I'm sorry, that's something I should have had that ready. Red snapper, the federal South Atlantic Fishery Management Council, in conjunction with NOAA, has released them. And someone else mentioned that to me also last week. I forget where I was. Someone saw me out and about.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Have you seen the boat just north of Comanche, that big sport fishing boat that's sitting right up on the bank?
That's the one that knocked the sign down in Salt Run, remember?
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's the same one.
Yeah,
So
the
that's-
name of it was Not Enough. I wanted to go out there and put water.
That's under are you guys doing that investigation? Megan is, yes, yeah.
I was down by the point last weekend and reported a green can that had come loose from the inlet. And I called,
8th Navigation, Jacksonville?
no, I called, not Justin, he's in here all the time. Josh, excuse me.
Josh Underwood, right.
Yeah, and reported it to him. I don't know whatever happened, but it was about
Probably forwarded.
halfway.
Probably,
Tom Crew was
Yeah.
out today.
Did it beach
I saw them coming towards the inlet with a green.
with the green can?
So
Yeah.
that may be it, I don't know if they put that one on.
dates?
They're going to be July 9th, 10th, and 11th.
July 9th, 10th, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
In Matanzas?
That's right. No, for the red snapper season.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And snapper season. And that it typically means if you're in federal waters, you can harvest one red, still one, no size limit, and we've seen some aquarium size ones. It's really, it borders on unethical fishing, but if the federal government doesn't want to put a size limit to it, there's nothing you can do. So that's coming open also. And I believe that's all we have right now. So boating, fisheries, no news. That's it. So any questions, comments, concerns, ruminations, consternations? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That everybody for government representatives? Nobody from county? No. All right. Secretary Treasurer's report? Oh, sorry. Here comes. Sure.
Just talking to Jim Piggott, City of St. Augustine, we're just talking to Corey. Just so you know, we have 5 boats that we're requesting money from FWC to pull, totaling $118,000.
Whoa, derelict
So-
vessels?
Yes. So just wanted to share that with y'all.
Where are they at? South of 312?
Majority south of 312.
The unofficial
No, not all of them, one is.
Come up and talk.
Unofficial anchorage.
Good afternoon. Corey Secker, Deputy Director, General Services for the City of St. Augustine. In the 5 grants, we have some large vessels. I think 3 of them are over 30 feet, 2 are over 40 feet, and 2 of them are sunk south of the 312 bridge, and those are pretty well silted in. We had our contractor come in, and he, we worked him out pretty good on the last project we did together, so he come down to dive these boats. So one of them's halfway silted in, and the other one's fully silted in, and both of those are over 40 feet. So I've never seen one up around 39,000, but that's that one. And then there's one up north of the Volano Bridge. It's fully shoaled up on the shore there. Yeah, that one's going. And so we have the grant application in. It's a total of 118,000, and
The 2 of them are totally sunk. on
2 of
the
them are
bottom.
totally sunk.
They've been there a while.
Yes.
So the one up on the bank, that boat didn't look like it's in that bad a condition. What's the owner say?
It also is flooded, yeah. It's got a hole in the bottom, so it's.
So the owner, you can't find the owner?
I know Megan, Officer Thomas was working that, and, they tried to reach out and stuff. The city's actually received a couple of calls about that one vessel also. So, we let the process work through with FWC. They forwarded us the removal authorization, and then we're pushing forward with the grant removal. And all 5 of those vessels are in the Port District.
Just a question about the sunken boats. Are there masts sticking up? Just wondering why they're looking to unsink boats at this, because there's a lot of sunken boats on the bottom down there, right?
So, yeah, I'm sure the law enforcement agencies that take care of all that paperwork, but yeah, there's, when I hand over some of these pictures to the contractor, sometimes it's just about 2 feet of mast above the
So
water.
there's stuff sticking up, okay, as I was saying, yeah.
What's the time frame on removal?
For removal on that, honestly, the hardest part is getting the authorization taken care of, getting an estimate that was within our procurement standards with the city, and then getting the grant executed with FWC and back. Unfortunately, that administration portion takes up a lot of the time. So right now, we're looking at probably next 30 to 45 days to hopefully having the project complete.
Is that on our thing, that's not on our thing today, to vote on today, though?
Say again?
No, they're using FWC money. They're not
Okay,
using
so
our
you're
money.
not coming from money, okay.
No, not from
Excuse me.
report this time, no.
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question that anybody in the room could answer. The question is this: I was coming from Orange Park the other day, and I got to the Shands Bridge, and there's a sign when you get on the bridge that says entering St. Johns County. So, is the whole river in St. Johns County?
It's center of the channel. We have to center of channel.
Could you come up here? So,
Yes, Deputy Braddock, St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. So we have from St. Johns County line, from the edge of shore to center of channel, and then it's Clay County or Putnam County.
okay. If I remember correctly, the sign used to be on the bridge, further in, about where the channel would be.
Very possible.
But right now, when you get on the bridge, it suddenly says, now entering St. Johns County.
More than likely, that's going to be a road and bridge or utilities mistake. Whoever was tasked with putting the sign up probably just didn't know.
Okay,
But it is center of the channel.
okay. Right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Secretary Treasurer's report?
All right, for the city police law enforcement overtime, of the 8,000 committed, we've only spent 150. Of the sheriff's department overtime, of the 25,000, committed, we've spent 7,411. On the derelict boats, we budgeted 25,000 and spent 10,965. In our Florida State Board of Administration, we have $23,157 in our operating account. We have $267,579 in our money market account. Now, I split that, the money market account and the reserve money market account are actually one account, but we reserved 1.5 for projects. And so the balance that's in there is 985,722. Of the taxes budgeted was 583,400. We've received 562,716 to date. There's still outstanding of 20,684 yet to come in, and we haven't gotten anything in the last couple of months, so we'll just wait.
Got it, thank you. Next item is approval of minutes. Did anyone have any modifications to
I
minutes?
move we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Great. Engineering report?
One of the items that, excuse me, that I've emailed back and forth and spoken with Commissioner Brown about is an opportunity for us to rotate different technical experts on about a quarterly basis through here, because I think that'll offer more insight both for the board members when they're out and about the community talking to different community members, and as well as any of them that listen to the recordings. That my thought is that we have Dr. Angela Shadell, who leads our coastal resilience planning practice, who works with the DEP, the water management districts, many other of the communities around the state, to bring that information back on about a quarterly basis of here's what other folks like this community are doing that would maybe better help inform what this board would want to do, or with the rest of the citizenry. On an alternating month, Dr. Chris Bender would come. He leads our coastal engineering and coastal storm risk management practice. And again, the same thing with communities just like this community that are around the state and actually around the nation. He leads that practice for the Corps of Engineers, for FEMA, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and then cities and counties in Florida as well. And so he could bring a short presentation of here's what other communities are looking at, thinking about doing. And again, it would just be news. The third month of a quarter would be Chris Ellis, who leads our environmental group, which again, he would be able to bring back those items that are relatively current both with the water management districts, again, the DEP, and communities, again, like this community, that would be relevant to what's happening now with brother and sister communities just like this one. And then an option for a fourth one is Jonathan Armbruster could come on alternating the fourth month. He leads our ports dredging and navigation practice, much of what we do at FIND, but you hear a good bit of that, what FIND is doing when Commissioner Blow comes. We could alternate that as the fourth month if that's something this commission wants to do. So that was just a thought. You'd get a different flavor for what the rest of the communities are doing in Florida, as opposed to seeing the same one or two guys. Again, if there was a bigger issue and you needed to see Ken Craig or myself, it's not a big deal. But I think that might help better inform the citizens of this district. So I just throw that out there.
I think that's a great idea.
Great, thank you, Jim. On to old business, kayak launch. As we said, we don't really have, everybody else sort of had their list of concerns, but Sandy, you said you had something you wanted to share?
Yes, I've had, because, again, it's gone on for 2 years now. We have voted several months ago at this point to at least move forward to some extent. The port did. I've got several people calling me up, constituents saying, I think you guys, please don't over-engineer it. All we need are 3 or 4 mud puddles filled with white rocks. They're looking at this, and I believe that it will probably just end up being pushed to the side and not done, like Lincolnville was. So there's a great deal of concern coming from our constituents, and they're just throwing their hands up in the air saying, look, all we need you to do is fill the mud puddles. Forget about the parking things. We don't need a trash can. Would you just fill the mud puddles? We could write a letter to the city of St. Augustine. They have a department. They do their own roads and do their own potholes in the city. If they wanted to go in with us, the city could go over there and fill those. I could even get volunteers to spread the stuff. So I'm just hearing a lot of things, especially from the folks on the Facebook page that is titled St. Johns County Boat Ramps and Pissed Off Taxpayers. That's an actual Facebook page of angry people, and they're just sending the message through, anything you can do, we're just talking mud puddles on a hard service, asking us not to over-engineer that. Although it would be nice to make it pretty, so something that we could think about and perhaps ask the city if they wanted to do it. I think we could fill those things for less than $1,000. Truckloads of, based on truckloads of rock that I get, way less than $1,000. A little short truck's about $100, $150. So we've got, what, 3 or 4 big mud puddles in a rut. So it's just something that they're reaching out to me and a lot of discussions and saying, can you, here we are at the, at season, and I see people doing terrible things, still using it over there. But it's desperate, watching them trying to get into water. So I'd just like to pass that along. If the port would like to do anything, maybe write a letter to the city, or just go, since we own those things, it doesn't take a permit to fill the mud puddles. Doesn't even take a permit. You just go out there and fill it. If you
Talking
have
about the May Street?
May Street, yes. So if we have an existing thing like.
The trouble is, it's just going to wash away again, because that groove that's formed in there now has just happened the last 6 months or so. So if you put anything in there,
Oh, that
it's
groove's
just going
been
to
there at
wash
least
out
2 years.
again.
Sir, I had pictures of that groove 2 or 3 years ago. Brought those in on my very first meeting, or the second meeting. So the groove has been there, it's just getting worse. Even if we had to do those every couple of years, go down, it's just so little amount of money to deal with the pits. What's actually keeping people from using it. It's not much if we had to do it every couple of years. So that's a request on behalf of my constituents who would really like to get into the water with their kayaks.
Any other discussion on that agenda item?
Just so I can say to them, is there any discussion about it? What do y'all think about that? So I can respond to them?
I mean, I think that sounds like a pretty reasonable solution. My question was, and Barbara raised this when we talked about it, was the actual deeds to the property. You've mentioned a couple times now that we own it.
According to the Eddie Kramer of the
Property
appraiser, yes. He sent me a picture, and I'm sorry, you weren't here yet, but I showed it on the thing. It shows the line, and basically we own that. The pole part that's actually the landing in the water, and took a straight line up there, we own the mud puddles.
Yeah.
But they own the driveway that goes in.
I mean, so this is an issue that, when I ran, this was something I was trying to be responsive to as well. I do know that there is a lot of community outcry for this. We've already had this room inundated with people asking for a fix to this solution. I had a lot of concerns about some of the comments being made because it did seem like very much a commercial opportunity, and I wasn't keen on spending a lot of funds to basically facilitate out-of-towners coming from Jacksonville and bringing in their kayak trailers. But if we're talking about, essentially a fix of filling in potholes, mud holes with gravel, I think that's a pretty reasonable solution to this problem. I don't think we can just sweep this under the rug and not do anything. I would be supportive of getting the city perhaps to put some gravel down so it can at least be somewhat presentable.
There could be some regulation too, either to allow only one, when you talk commercial trailer, or none, or what have you. Not saying I would definitely like to see it non-motorized, because it is right across the little tiny creek from lots of homes right there too. And believe me, I live right next to it, and that can really be a problem in the middle of the night. But those regulations could certainly be thought out. But for, there's regular folks who live here in our district and are just desperate to get their kayaks in the water. To them, it's just so easy if we would approve that. And we could do that today. Up to a certain amount, and I would be glad to make the calls and have it done, or even collect the,
Is that property owned by the city?
no,
No,
it's owned by the Port Authority.
We just talked about that.
I would like some confirmation that we don't need permits to dump gravel in a wetland, especially given that we admit.
Oh, no,
we
not in
agree
a
that-
wetland.
Saying, I don't know that that's not considered a wetland. We have no confirmation of that. I mean, it floods in king tides, and it's immediately surrounded by wetlands
So does
on
my
three
front
sides.
yard, though, just so you know.
Right, but I also would like some confirmation that improving that lot in any way is not going to constitute an open invitation to the, I mean, as we have discussed many times, as it currently stands, there is no invitation to the public to use that lot, right? People use that lot, but we have not, advertised to the public, hey, come put your kayaks in here. Is adding gravel, is improving that lot in any way constitute an invitation to the public to use it, which is going to change our responsibilities vis-a-vis that lot? I would like some confirmation, or I would like some answers to both of those questions before we move forward. I personally suspect that dumping gravel in a wetland or that immediately adjacent to a wetland, especially if it's likely to get washed into that wetland on a periodic basis, as Thomas pointed out, I would be very surprised if it is a
Actually, I
that is a
expanded that
zero
to you from
permit.
the Army Corps of Engineer has that already open project for things exactly
Sandy,
like that.
if that document that you provided for us
Right.
specifically says you have to go to the Army Corps of Engineers and
understand
present them with a plan for what you're going to do, that's not no permit.
Right, but
That's a pretty involved
that
permitting
is
process.
for putting things down. If we were going to, for example, put big pieces of concrete that are already there at the launch, we don't need to do that.
It's for any improvement. I've read that
Okay,
document.
just on behalf of our constituents, what could we do? Where do we go? Do I go back to the city? Who do I ask now if that is permitted? Because I already asked, I asked Building and Planning if we needed a permit simply to fill the potholes, and I was told no.
But the city doesn't have
City doesn't
jurisdiction
have-
on that.
Okay.
That's the
Yeah,
Army
that's
Corps of
city
All right,
Engineers.
who would you,
Army
how would
Corps.
we, see, we don't have any employees, and we can't seem to pull off one kayak launch for our constituents in 2 years, and every other one has systematically been shut down.
Okay,
And
so
this is sad.
two
Sandy,
things as to Matt's point. Hold on.
Hang on just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So as to Matt's point on, getting a permit from the Corps, obviously, we would have to look into that if the paperwork you've provided does indicate that you need a permit. As to the second point in terms of opening the door to liability, I think that door has already been opened. We've already had public testimony, with people saying,
It's like being
hey,
on the
we know
beach."
that you're the permitting authority, we are here asking for this, we use it all the time. I mean, that door is open, in my opinion. So we either have a responsibility to either completely shut it down to avoid any potential future liability, which is an option we maybe should consider, or I think we have some sort of responsibility to at least make it somewhat passable. So do think that inaction on this particular issue is no longer really a viable option. It leaves us open in terms of legal exposure. So I think we need to do something.
Well, Mr. Hanna is our Army Corps liaison, and I could shoot him an email and say, Mr. Hanna, send him the pictures. This is what's going on. What do we need from the Corps, and what do we do? Would that be acceptable?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Commissioner Flowers a question.
Yes, go right ahead.
You said that you asked if we needed a permit and somebody told you no.
Not to just fill potholes, correct?
Okay, who is that? Who did you?
That would be the lady that works at Building and Planning.
Okay, what's the name of the?
Shelley. Shelley, she's worked there a really long time.
In
Yes,
building
sir.
and planning, okay.
Yeah, Shelley. She's worked there a long time. And that would not just be for us, anybody who owns a piece of property and has a driveway or exactly what we have there, just a hard spot with potholes, can fill that without a permit. But if we can come to an agreement before I do the work, I will send Mr. Hanna pictures and information on the May Street and see if the Corps requires any permit to move forward on filling the potholes.
Why don't you do that so we can at least address the first concern?
And is there an estimate on how much stuff you'd need to fill those potholes?
I don't have that at this point. I
I'm
wanted to
wondering
see.
if they just did it.
So honestly, to tell you the truth, some of the constituents are so put out, they've actually said, why don't, one of them's a landscaper, I'll just go dump, like, I wouldn't do that if I was you, but.
Sandy, are any of your constituents commercial?
Only the person who came here and spoke, that does the thing for the vets, and I'm sure other types of commercial thing, and.
Well, that's the
and-
kind of operation we do not need down there. That's just for private people to use, which is the way it is right now.
Well, see, what happens in our county so often, in order to keep the folks that you think you don't want there out, the entire public cuts off our nose to spite our face. The entire public goes without the launch. Like I said, we could regulate that so the big trailers couldn't get in. You know, that it's individual, you could even regulate it, no trailers for that matter. It's such a small spot. To me, it's just a kayak in a truck on top of, it's so perfect for that. That's the most possible, best way to deal with the parking there is no trailers, et cetera.
I just don't know how that would even be enforced on the commercial side. I mean,
Well, you just, I mean, they go past it constantly. It's just so visible right there. Just like if there's a problem at the Volano, that free dock over there, we've got so many police on the water, I mean, it's easy to tell if somebody's spending the night not supposed to be doing it.
Well, let's get the answer to the question of whether or not a permit is needed from the Corps.
Was there another thing I could work on so that we could have it?
Maybe pricing the gravel out.
I'll get the price of the gravel.
what are the implications if we funded it? I mean, now is it our responsibility, or how do we fund it and say, here, we're gonna?
Already, we own the property. It's just public property that's owned by the port.
That we now have knowledge that a lot of people are using on a pretty consistent basis. I mean.
The county owns the beach. Nobody, I've never even heard of somebody suing the county if they step on a piece of glass.
That's not true.
That happens
I mean,
all the
maybe
time.
they do. I'm saying the county owns the beach. We own, I mean, this is the public trust. The point of the public trust is not to keep the public off of it unless there's a really good reason. That's all. Okay, so I'll get prices of the gravel, the Corps permit information.
If one is needed or not.
Jim
Do we need to go back to the city for any questions?
The city doesn't have jurisdiction over wetland
Well,
fill.
because it's within the city limits, just like you're talking to Barb. I would
Right, but
think
if
that
the issue is wetland impact, the city has nothing to do with that.
No, I'm
That's
not
gonna be,
saying
that's
there are.
gonna
I'm
be
saying,
state DEP.
I'm trying to check
and
everything
the
off the
Army
list
Corps.
that I could possibly do before the next
Sounds like
meeting.
you already checked the city off
Okay.
the list.
Really quick, I just talked to David Burcham. The one question he has is, you know, this is government, are the potholes in the FDOT right away, or are they in your property, which is within the city? If
One
they're
of them,
within-
I
if-
think, is in the FDOT.
Then you'd have to get permission from FDOT to make improvements on their property. If it's in the city property, he doesn't foresee an issue. However, he would recommend about the wetlands question, about going to Reuben Franklin, who's our Public Works Director, who handles permitting like that.
I know Ruben pretty well. I'll ask him about that.
I'll go straight to the Corps, because Mr. Hanna is our liaison to this board.
Understand, understand. So that's
Thank
what
you.
Pine
I was
Street
able to
washes
find
out
out.
at least 4 or 5 times a year.
Okay, we all have our homework assignments on that, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item of business was digitizing records. I believe the only outstanding thing here, Sandy, you had told us a few meetings ago that you were going to get in touch with
Yes.
the college to see if you could make any headway there.
I would still like to do that. Been in the hospital, I've had a couple of rough months, and I just haven't had the time because it is going to be a little time consuming, I think, to go down there and talk to somebody. But I'm convinced that they could come up with a junior or senior to do a 1 or 2 year internship. Is that what it's called?
Sure,
I just would like to keep that on, I just haven't had the time.
that's fine. So we'll maybe push that to the next agenda, or you can speak with Elise if you're ready to talk about it
Yes, anything that
next
comes in
meeting.
on that, I'll send to her so that she will send it to y'all.
That brings us to new business. A, discussion of outstanding requests. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Matt, I think.
If I could, just as a reminder before we move off that old business, if I recall correctly, the issue was looking at whether an intern or something else would be done in lieu of the proposal that was sitting in front of the commission.
Yeah.
That has already been made, and I just wanted to remind the commission that's still out there, and I don't know how long you would
Is
be
that the
interested.
$43,000
Yeah, I think
proposal?
they're withdrawing that, and
Okay.
I don't think
Yeah,
there's,
because it's been so long, and we
it's
have to plan, because
way
it's
too much,
time.
yeah.
We didn't want to do that,
So we
yeah.
have to plan, and so he's like,
That was what I was concerned would be
Yeah.
happening. Never mind then.
Okay, new business, discussion of outstanding requests made of Commissioner Flowers and criteria that are grounds for suspension or removal.
Yes, this is an agenda item I had requested, and I'm going to try to keep this relatively brief because this could be a topic that could take an extensive amount of time, but this would be sort of a 20,000 feet view. There's been a couple of records requests that are outstanding, or one of which is still outstanding, that I've made of Commissioner Flowers, one of which I've gotten absolutely no response to at all on a
What question do you have,
substantive
sir, that I
basis.
can answer you right now? Because we've exchanged, a dozen emails from you, at least. And all I'm asking for is a completed set of engineering records from Taylor for the Summer Haven project. And there has been a dozen emails that have resulted in over $3,000 we've paid directly to you for you to ask me questions like, what do you mean by email?
All right, first of all, that's not true, that's a false statement.
I've got them on the email, and I'll be
Second of
glad to
all,
share them with all these
Commissioner
commissioners.
Flowers.
Let him finish.
It's a simple
Invoices
records
are public
request. It shouldn't
record.
be handled by a lawyer.
Stop talking over him.
Which brings me to the second issue, which is going to be the criteria for suspension or removal, one of which is malfeasance and improper performance of your duties. The records request I was just referring to was the one that I made of you back in April regarding the alleged information you had about litigation threatened against the district. You've given me no response.
I don't have to give you records, honey. They're all in my emails. If you want, records are kept by our custodian. Now, you're asking me to give you records that came from my...
Commissioner Flowers, you indicated that you had information of numerous individuals that were threatening litigation
Yes.
against the district.
Yes.
And I specifically requested that you provide me that information so that I could address any possible legal concerns that the district might have.
Those were confidential discussions. I mean, can I answer his question or no?
Go right
Those
ahead.
are confidential discussions that I had, not emails. If it was emails, it would belong to you. But a discussion I have with a constituent that comes up to my porch, same way you came up to my porch and talked to me for a couple hours, they are not subject to the
Your
sunshine. Let me
request.
finish. You
At
let me
your
finish, it's my
request.
turn. Now, that's right. These people come, they call me, they come to the house, we sit and talk. They're very angry. They're angry with you, too. So the question is, why are you harassing me? Because all I have asked you to get from me is a complete set of records for the Summer Haven project from Taylor Engineering. For some reason, you took that task over from our custodian, that we voted her to be our custodian. Why are we paying $200 an hour for you to not fulfill a legal public records request? The only answer to a public records request is, here it is. You don't get to ask me why I want them. Can't ask me for an ID. I can walk into the police department and say, I want to see a log of who's in the jail today. You can't even say, where's your driver's license? But instead, you send me over $3,000 worth of emails, and I haven't got a record yet.
False.
You've told me to go get them myself, as a matter of fact. The
Also
only answer
false.
to a public records request is fulfillment.
Okay, can I maybe weigh in if it would be at all helpful. I think there's two distinct issues here, right? We have the Port Authority attorney is trying to understand what the nature of the threat of litigation against this board might be. That was what he was trying to ascertain, which quite frankly is his job. If that threat is non-existent, then maybe we just need to clarify that.
The only thing I've ever said to him is my constituents, our constituents, are pissed off.
Okay.
And the idea, let me finish, I'm trying to answer his question.
Sandy.
And that the idea,
Sandy, listen to me just for a second.
you just asked me to clarify it, and now I'm not allowed.
What you said was that people were threatening litigation,
Yeah,
and his job is to protect us.
I didn't say that yet. I'm trying to say what I told him.
Okay, so are you
Okay, let me
redacting
say
that?
what I told him. Let me make it very clear for the
Okay,
record.
Let's make it clear.
I have had a conversation in which I stated, just like I stated today, there are Facebook pages springing up because our constituents are tired of being denied beach access, river access, kayak access, one at a time. And now even the driving on the beach access has been reduced greatly. They didn't increase the public access, did they? The Surfrider Foundation has already sued the city of
Sandy,
St.
answer the question of
I'm
whether...
trying to tell you,
No,
as I
it's-
told him, that
Sandy,
there's a lot of talk
it's a yes or
about
no
derelict.
question. Has anyone threatened to sue us?
Not specifically, and I never said that they did.
You did. You said that 13 people had threatened to sue us. We all saw the email. It's public record, Sandy. We all saw it. You said 13 people
13
had
people, I
indicated
have
to you
13 constituents.
that they were going to sue
Nobody
the
has-
Port District over Summerhaven unless the port did something to pursue the matter.
They should.
That's exactly
They
what you
should.
said.
And I'll be right there with them too.
You're
Because
gonna-
derelict.
you're also gonna sue
Let me
the Port
finish.
District.
Let me finish. Taylor Engineering walked out of this port with almost $3 million that never got bid to another thing. And look at you shaking your head like you think that's okay. It was not okay. He is a contractor. He's an engineer. It's $2.9 million. That's way over $300,000. He walked out of here with that contract without ever a single bid. Nobody wants to talk about that.
Okay,
The
Sandy, can we keep on issue here? So we have this
So
one issue.
I have not been informed that anybody has actually filed a lawsuit. People are talking.
Not actually filed a lawsuit. We're threatening to
Yes,
file a
people are
lawsuit.
talking about, yes, definitely.
Who are they?
None of your business.
It's absolutely our
When they
business.
filed a lawsuit, it'd be your business. I have had conversations with our constituents where they're saying, look, the port is letting our money walk out of here without a bid.
Okay, so...
They're angry.
So
They want to take
Sandy,
action.
Sandy, stop for just a second.
Let me
The good
jump in
news
real quick.
is that we are a government agency, and anyone that wants to sue a government agency first has to, under Florida law, provide advance notice, and then we
That's
would have
right.
an opportunity to cure.
And I'm just trying to tell you
Let her
that people are so
finish.
upset
Let her
that they're
finish.
trying to talk about this.
So I really don't think we need to continue on this particular issue of whether or not there's a threat of litigation. They would have to provide notice. No one has seen any notice. So I think we should just leave that alone unless there is actually going to be a notice filed by someone. The second issue that I see is the public records request. I do think that it is appropriate for the board to have full access to all engineering documents. We have paid for that. It is the property of the Port Authority to have full access to those documents, and I don't think that any one of us should have to pay for that to be able to review it. I don't understand why it's so difficult to just stick it on a hard drive, stick it on a thumb drive and provide it. I mean, I make these public records requests with agencies all over the state. It's really not that complicated. I don't understand as a sitting elected official why we don't have access to those documents. They are our property.
But what documents do we not have? We still have not.
No sounding documents at all.
We have
There
not
were no
heard,
depths.
you have not been able to, I mean, this has been going on for nearly a year at this point, Sandy, and you're going to let me finish. You have not been able to articulate a single record that you have not actually had access to. As far as we know, and has been told to us by Taylor many times, we have all the records. Every record that was generated relative to that project
There are no
has been
depth
provided to
sounders.
us.
There are no depth soundings whatsoever.
Okay, so now a year in, you
can
have
I
no
finish?
depth soundings.
Okay,
No.
May I? Okay. You're going to ask a
We
question,
have
I
all
get to
those records.
respond.
What has been?
We do not have all the records. I have seen in possession.
Let me finish. We have every record that Taylor has generated for this project. They're all in
Why
the
do you
court
think
office.
that?
Because
Because Taylor said so?
yes, absolutely, and because for a year you have been unable to articulate a single record
I
that
have
we do
only
not
asked
have.
for these
I am not done.
3 months ago.
We already have all those records. What has been charged to us is not access to the records. It has been collating them for you because you are unwilling to go get them yourself. That's the charge that's been.
I've already been to the port office. We do not have all the records. And here's the thing about a records request. I'm sorry that Ms. West has left. It doesn't matter. As long as I'm willing to pay, it doesn't matter if you gave me the whole thing a year ago. It doesn't matter if it's sitting at the office. Please read what the state attorney and the adjudication has been of the Sunshine Law, as I'm willing to pay the cost, and you're required to keep it neat, orderly, and easy to find. It wouldn't take 20 minutes to put that whole project thing on a thumb drive. So like Ms. West says, what's the problem? You don't get to ask me why I want it. You don't know. You don't get to ask me what I want. I want the whole file. Just send me the whole file.
Nobody's asking you what you want. If we already have all the records, Taylor has no responsibility.
Yes, they do. There's a records request in front of them.
Finish. They do not have a responsibility because the port already holds those records. We are the public agency.
We don't have soundings.
We are the public agency who would be responsive to a public records request, not Taylor. If they have already given us everything, which they insist they have, then there's absolutely no reason why they have any responsibility or need to be.
No, sir. The Sunshine Law states you can go directly to, and this Wallace told me the same thing, we can go directly to that contractor and deal directly with them. We do not have, nobody has to go through the port to get those records.
That's absolutely the first place they have to go. The only reason why they would not go
No,
through
sir,
the
call
port
John Wallace, he's also an attorney.
I'm talking to John Wallace. John Wallace called me and told me that you had been misrepresenting everything that he was saying, and he also told me that based on everything that he'd seen, there's no case here anyway.
Well, guess what? He called me in the hospital after y'all's talk and after your talk with him, and I said, Mr. Wallace, you're going on what Mr. Meek told you and what Mr. Brown told you.
I didn't tell him
Let me
anything.
finish. I said, would you please go back and listen to the actual meetings so you can see that I have not committed your services to this project. Now, I just left the hospital a couple weeks ago, so that was only in the last 2 weeks. He said, Sandy, I did go back. I listened to the meetings. And you know what? I agree with you. You have not committed my services to anything. I said, are you still interested? He said, I am still interested. And then as I saw, he gave me the exact things that he needed. There are no soundings in there. That's one of the things he needs. And then he also mentioned that, again, he called me and told me this after supposedly I was misrepresenting him. You guys misrepresent me constantly. Let me finish.
That is not
Then
true.
he told me that he reviewed enough of this to see that FEMA may owe us that $93,000 back. So until he comes in to talk to us about that, I don't really know what he means. But as of 2 weeks ago, he had listened to the meetings, did not think I committed him to anything, and is still interested and wants to see the records.
I don't believe any part of that. The conversation that we
Well,
had,
sorry.
you specifically said in February 2021 that he was ready to take the case and very interested in it. He called me and said he was in no way ready to take the case, that was a complete misrepresentation of his
He went
posture
back and
relative
listened
the
to
case.
exactly what I said. And why you are protecting Taylor and everybody else, I don't know. Because like I said, you'll never get over stealing that $2.9 million without a bid. There's nobody that can say that was okay, and Taylor knows it's not okay.
If I could just briefly, and I understand and respect Commissioner West's comments about the pre-suit requirements. And certainly if it's the will of this board to wait until that threshold is crossed to address litigation, I will march in whatever direction the board wishes to march. I can tell you, as someone that litigates things on a very regular basis, the sooner I know about alleged facts, the sooner I know about alleged witnesses, the sooner I can start preparing a defense, whether I've gotten notice of it or not. And that's why I asked that information of Commissioner Flowers. To date, Commissioner Flowers has either not responded or has asserted a generic privilege here, verbally here today, which I do not believe applies in any way, shape, or form. There's no
They're not
legal
entitled to my
ground.
conversations, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Flowers, allow me to speak. There is no legal ground for you to refuse to provide the information that has been requested.
These are conversations
Your
with
oath of
my
office is
constituents.
to this port, not to a
Close
constituent.
yours,
Sandy?
and everybody else that took a oath here.
Sandy?
Again, if it's the port.
$2.9 million gone.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we stop letting this issue suck the oxygen out of this room, and that we, quite frankly, not pay any more attention to the threat of litigation until we see an actual notice of a threat of litigation. That's my motion.
I second it.
Repeat the motion, please.
That we no longer pay any attention to the issue of the threat of litigation until we actually receive a written notice which is required under Florida law, that a lawsuit is about to be filed.
I second it as well.
All in favor?
Aye. Because all that's done is make a bunch of money for you, just like my simple records request, as you have made over $3,000.
We just made a motion.
Dropped it.
3,000.
That is false, first of all, Commissioner Flowers.
I had her send me the invoices.
Okay,
I'm glad it's
guys, we
documented.
just made a motion.
I'm sorry, I just hate the lying.
I moved the
Beyond-
agenda. I moved the agenda.
Yeah, we're moving on to B, Taylor Engineering, motion to cancel contract, Commissioner Flowers.
That would be based on their failure with Summer Haven and refusal to supply records when requested.
So you are moving to cancel our contract with Taylor Engineering.
Yes.
Do I hear a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Issue 3, resolution to accept city's offer for scope of work for marker replacement, or alternately to continue to do it on our own, all commissioners.
Can I make one comment on that and ask that they be limited in the amount they could spend on any one marker? Like, we just got a really big warning marker done for $1,500 or $2,000, so we don't want to be paying $9,500 again. So when they do that, could there be a limit on what could be spent per marker?
Yes, that's how these contracts work, right? Yeah, there's going to be a cap on it.
Do we already have that set, or?
I think it's going to depend on how the bidding comes back.
Just tell us what it is. Make sure it's not more than that.
Come on up, Jim.
Jim Piggott, City of St. Augustine. You can set the cap whatever you want, and we'll make sure it's in a document. I'll put that in the interlocal agreement with Clay. Again, if you want to do this on your own, like you handled the other one, we're fine with that as well. If you want us to do it, it may take a little bit longer, but however you want to do it, it's fine with you.
I don't think the people coming to actually do, whether it's you bidding, the city bidding it, or us, when they get to it, it's just when they're going to get to it. Nobody stops a project to go put a pylon in.
Right.
Right, but the issue was that we only meet once a month, so it's often the case that we can't even move on pylon replacement until our next meeting, whereas the city would be able to almost immediately, which could save a couple of weeks. Is there any additional discussion on this issue?
Now I make a motion that we accept the city's offer to handle the scope of work for marker replacement.
I second that motion.
Can we have that cap in there? You need us to give you the cap, right, Jim?
Well, it will depend from marker to marker.
No, not really.
You could put a cap price in there if that's how you want to proceed. Again, it's marker to marker. I don't think we answered the one question. Do you want a wood pylon?
Oh, we did. We said wood.
Okay, all right. So you could put a cap of $5,000 or whatever.
Oh,
it
that's
is.
way too much.
I don't know how much.
About as what they did the last, 1,500 or 2,000 is already
you
pushing the
remember how
envelope.
Well, Taylor, Yelton, I think they said 1,500, but they were right there.
And then if you pay for a sign for that too, if you want a sign,
we've ordered the
that
sign.
could be added to it as well, so.
Right, the depth in which those markers are set varies pretty considerably. So the ones that are going in deeper water are going to cost a lot more than the ones that go in shallow water, right? So I don't know that setting a cap, especially one that low, is.
We got to approve it anyway, correct? I mean, if you get the quote and say, hey, it's
Exactly.
Well, that's what the interlocal, and Corey's gonna put the bid together. We're gonna go out and get 2 or 3 contractors, hopefully. And then when I get a call, it doesn't have to be at a meeting because we want to do it quicker. When we get a call from, let's say, Chairman Brown, say, hey, there's a marker in Salt Run that needs to be replaced, call me, we'll call a contractor that's most readily available, and we'll have them go out there and set it at the earliest opportunity.
I'd like to set something that says that comes through some of our police, like Josh Underwood or somebody on the river, because as we know, when we paid the $9,500, that marker was never even reported as being down by anybody, including the entire cruiser's net. So I'd like something to go through the police department. So can we have something so that must be reported by one of our on-the-water cops?
I don't think adding another bureaucratic layer is gonna, the whole point is to be able to do this quickly. I'm not sure that.
Well, that's who usually reports it, is Josh, is he's either Josh or Jerry's out there, and they report it. So adding, if the city's doing it, we are the extra bureaucratic layer in that case.
If they want to report to you and then you call me and that's good, or
I'd just like to know that law
Want to call
enforcement
me, then I can call.
reports it down.
I would prefer that we set how you want this chain of information to go. If I
Yeah.
get into a marker that I find is down, who do I call? You see what I'm saying? Because, I mean, what we're doing right now is add one more person to
Yeah, I think you call Jim or,
Okay,
yeah,
so if I have a marker down, I call Mr. Pickett and say, marker 38's down, it's Colorado River.
Braddock.
But the way the interlocal's written, that I need to get authority from the Port District, from the paragraph you added, correct?
Right.
Right.
Well, aren't we
guess-
pre-authorizing up to $2,000? Is that not any marker that goes down, so you could do it immediately? You could shoot out for
We'll
bid.
contact that contractor, or
Right.
all three contractors, all two contractors, you can go out there the earliest. So, I don't know what the.
Nobody can authorize that money, so in other words, I thought we were pre-authorizing it, so if a marker went down, you could go ahead and do
Essentially,
it.
that's what the interlocal agreement.
Right, that's
is
what the
doing.
interlocal agreement does.
That we're not getting paid 1 cent for it, we're just gonna contact the contractor, get the invoice. We normally pay it, then we send you an invoice for what that invoice was.
And just so the commission is aware, from the draft that was presented last time, the paragraph that I worked out with the city to add in to address the non-exclusive part is an extra paragraph that says, "The district shall notify the city of any repair or replacement projects to be undertaken pursuant to this agreement, period. This agreement is non-exclusive, and the district may utilize other methods, partners, and/or vendors for repair or replacement of damaged channel markers of the channel serving Salt Run as the district sees fit." That was the best way I could come up with to still leave the flexibility to do what was done with the Yelton situation, while at the same time keeping a relationship with the city, to thankfully be willing to do the heavy lifting of the contracting and such. But I wanted to add that first sentence so that both organizations weren't moving to fix the same marker. So I felt it was important to put something in there that the city would know to act when we notified the city, hey, go deal with this.
I have one thing to say about the channel markers. We are currently working, the sheriff's office, myself, and our county GIS are working together to have a map of all of the channel marker and navigational aids throughout St. Johns County, so that we will have a clear picture and an up-to-date picture of what's currently there on station, in good shape, and so forth. And we're sharing this with the Coast Guard ATON groups so that they have an idea of what the situation is, and we'll update that when they fix it or replace it. And if something's down, we always call them, and then we're going to put it on the website, much like our derelict boat site. It's going to be through the same GIS mapping system. So it wouldn't necessarily be all that hard to add not just the Coast Guard maintained ones, but then put the privately maintained ones that we want on there as well. And that may assist in the notification that you're looking for, as far as the validating whether it's there or not, or damaged or replaced or so forth. I don't know if that'll be useful or not. We're still in the stages of building the site, but I could always bring that back to you when we have, when we're
That'd be
closer to
awesome.
completion on that.
We're talking just Salt Run.
Yes,
Yeah.
which, that's what I'm saying, it wouldn't be
Right.
hard to just throw those on there necessarily. Granted, I'm not the one doing the coding, but I would imagine that would be feasible, and then provide a login to whoever's going to maintain that, and then you could see what we are seeing as far as what we're maintaining. But we are planning to do that now with all of the Coast Guard maintained nav aids. So, if that's any use to you.
Sounds great, thank you.
I think it's pretty straightforward. We can have them do it, or we can do it. I mean, we just keep going round and round. I don't see an issue with it.
Yeah, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any more discussion, or are we ready to vote on it?
What are we going to do about, are we putting a cap so he can move forward, or how's the motion read?
Motion was just to accept as written. There is not currently a cap, and I am suspicious that we can come up with a feasible cap until we've got bids back from.
And I can always call you with what the
Right.
cheapest bid is.
I think we need to hear bids first.
Well, there's a lot, it's not the cost of the pile. It's how deep the water is and where is their barge.
One's going to be different.
It's the cost of the
They
pile
need
and the
it
cost
to
of the
go.
labor to drive it.
What's that?
It's the cost of the pile
I
and the
know, but
cost of the labor to
that's not
drive
what
it.
really drives the cost. The piling is, I mean, a wood piling,
Well, we only have salt one markers that we're responsible for, and every one of them are in very shallow water.
yeah. Well, all I'm saying is, if we put out a quote, say we need somebody to fix this this marker in the next 4 or 5 days,
That's not what happened.
well, whatever it is, the guy's gonna give you the quote based on where his barge is. He goes, now, if I'm heading down that way in a month and I'm going right by there, I'll set a pile for you. That's how we got it from Yelton for 1,500. He can see where that pile's going, because his barge is there, and he's gonna be there for the next.
Even if his barge wasn't there, what I'm saying, anybody that's going to quote you that price, they are not going to come in 4 or 5 days unless they happen to already be there. They're only going to replace that pile when they have a project in that area. And I've talked to them. They're
not
not
in
going to
favor
bring
of-
their big equipment over there to do
never
one
mind.
pile.
I'm not in favor of a price cap. If we get to the point where we see an issue with this just being exceedingly expensive over the course of time, then maybe we can reevaluate the interlocal agreement and put in a price cap that is reasonable by our standards. But let's, in terms of moving quickly on these issues, I would be in favor of not having a price cap within the interlocal agreement.
I agree with that completely.
So say it's 10,000, is that going to come back to the board for approval?
Oh, sorry, Clay has,
Yeah, just 2 points to add along this current consideration. Number one, under this interlocal, the city of St. Augustine doesn't make a penny on anything that's being done. They're just administering this for us, so they have no incentive for the price to be inflated in any way, shape, or form. And this agreement does have a 30-day termination. So if you do get in that situation where one pylon was just, in the commission's judgment, out of whack, it can be instantly terminated, but the city's not going to make anything off of doing this.
right.
So how is it going to work then? We're going to get the report from law enforcement, goes to Jim Piggott. You'll go ahead and do the bidding
And then
right
we'll
away.
contact the chairman.
Okay.
Sign off.
And then when does the port find out how much do we go ahead and spend an unlimited, uncapped amount, or
Well,
will there
our
be? a-
purchasing department then would have to contact the 1 or 2 vendors, one to see if they can both do it. Let's just say there's 2. If they can both do it and what their prices are. And then we will take the cheapest one, and it may not be the cheapest one you want, it may be the more expensive one, because they're going to get there sooner. Because that was one of your criteria that you wanted,
Right.
something sooner,
But
so.
I'm trying to figure out when does the amount get approved, whatever that amount is? When is that?
I will let you know at the next port meeting, let's say tomorrow, one of the markers gets knocked down. And Jerry goes out there, lets me know there's a marker knocked down, I would call Matt saying, we'll call our 2 or 3 vendors. Here's the deal, the cheapest price is this. It ranges from $100 to $300. The $300 one, though, can get it fixed tomorrow. The $100 one, you have to wait a week.
So we're still but we have to wait for the board to come back to approve the expenditure?
No, that's what the interlocal's doing, that we can act on it right away.
Okay,
long as
without any
we-
cap whatsoever then?
Long as, the chairman, if I can get a hold of the chairman, or,
So the
What if you
chairman
get
is
the bids?
approving the expenditure alone? In any uncapped amount?
Through a bidding process that the city vets.
we have
I
already,
understand it's a bidding process, but the last thing, it was just 9,500, which is way out. So I'm just wondering, is it going to be uncapped? That the chairman is going to be able to approve an expenditure of any amount?
Yes, that is the way the current motion is phrased.
Jim, is
See,
it
I don't think our
possible-
chairman has the authority to approve amount of any
You just
expenditure.
contact Matt or
well, that's what I said, yeah, when the bids come in, I'll let them know
Say, okay,
the
let's
cheapest, the
go.
lowest, the quickest, whatever.
Yeah, that's, and then the chairman will give you the go-ahead.
And whoever.
Chairman doesn't
who's the
have the
vice chair,
authority to
you
approve an
use-
unlimited amount of money to go out, is what I'm trying to say.
We have delegated.
The amount to Elise will send an email to all of us, then we'll all know.
There you go.
Is that okay?
We can't approve money to be, according to the charter, we cannot approve money. He doesn't have the authority to approve unlimited amount. Now, we've approved some type of resolution that they voted for a long time ago that capped it at $4,000. But we had the chairman spending up twice that much. So don't we have to have some cap, or we just have the chairman spending an unlimited amount?
This won't be the chairman spending an unlimited amount. This will be signing off on the mechanisms of an interlocal agreement in which we have delegated our spending authority partially to the city through a contract. It's a completely different legal mechanism, Sandy, and it's absolutely completely legal
And it's
under our
and it's
charter.
unlimited, that's all. So technically,
And-
Jim can call you and say, can I,
Yes, and if at any point we have a meeting and it turns out I have been wildly overspending and we've approved $20,000 for 2 pylons or something, we'll vote to cancel the contract and it'll
but
never happen
where's that
again.
limit? Why aren't we protecting?
The limit is,
I give up. I give up, seriously.
okay, well, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor?
No.
Aye. Okay, that was 4 yays and no from Commissioner Flowers. Thank you, Jim. Next up is funding request. Sergeant Whitehead.
Does everybody have a copy of the proposed request that I submitted? I'll try, I'm sorry, Sergeant Whitehead, Sound Police Department. I'll try to keep this brief. I've been researching this for about 7 months now, back and forth with different companies and different agencies that have a side scan sonar that's towable. The reason being, in my 28 years of doing this, 17 of them have been on a boat. Don't know how many Steve has on the boat. I know how many he has on the boat. I know you used to be a lifeguard. Bodies in the water. When bodies go down in the water, families panic and they want a resolution. They want their family member found quickly. Normally, if a drowning occurs, it's 17 to 27 hours before a body will surface, depending on a bunch of different things: water temperature, what they were wearing, what the current's doing, what kind of water it is, this, that, and the other thing. The whole reason I want to get this, and it has other benefits too, is so we can more effectively get that person out of the water quicker for families' resolutions. That's it. There's no hidden agenda. There's no, yeah, we can use it to find sunken boats if that may be a hazard. Yes, we can. But the whole reason I did this is because of that one reason. That's it. No more. And I know you can say yes or no, and that's all I ask. If you look at it, I think it's self-explanatory. I wrote almost a book. I don't usually write that much. Sorry. J.W. Fisher has been doing this since the 60s. They pioneered sonar, handheld sonars, so they're really good. They offered the best warranty on their towable sonars. This comes with the sonar, all the cabling, and a computer to run it. So it can be picked up, and I can put it on one of Steve's boats, or we can put it on the sheriff's office boats, or it can go on the police boat, wherever it's needed at that time. If there's a drowning off the beach, we can run the beach and see if we can find that person.
How often do you anticipate this being used per year?
In this instance, or just being used in general?
Just being used in general.
For the first 6 months, it's probably going to be used once or twice a week to get training on it, to learn the ins and outs of it. After that, honestly, for body recovery, I can't even venture to guess. I don't know. I would be making up numbers for you, and I'm not going to do that. I don't know.
Could this sonar also see a box, like the bottom of the creek? Say if somebody dropped off a box on the bottom of the creek, can
It
it
will
see those
draw
kind of
you a
things?
picture of what's on the bottom of the river or the water. It's a camera, basically, but it's using sonar, and it's sending the signal back to your computer. So yes, if it's a box, it looks like a box. If it's a body, depending on the way the sonar bounces off of it, it looks like a body. If it's a crab trap, depending on the way the sonar bounces off of it, it looks like a crab trap.
Which agencies are going to have access to this piece of equipment besides SAPD?
St. John County Sheriff's Office, FWC, St. Augustine Fire Department, also the fire rescue will have access to it. And by access, that means it'll have an operator on their boat with them running the system.
County Fire Rescue, you said, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Have you pursued funding with the county?
No, ma'am, I have not.
I think that's used at least once a year for something or another between the fire department and the police department. And just so, I don't know if other board members realize, but there's a real problem with drug dealers used to drop stuff off out in the ocean because everybody's got the GPS and you could go right to it. Now they drop stuff inland. 4th of July is one of the best times to come in the inlet, just so you know. I've seen a lot of divers in Hospital Creek looking in the same spot like they lost something, never did find it. I don't know what they look, I'm just saying, if it works like that, you could
I mean,
see
you
some
can
other
dra- you
stuff
can- It can
too.
be towed into St. Augustine, or in Hospital Creek, and you can see what's on the bottom, underneath docks, underneath boats. So they use it to find narcotics attached to hulls of ocean-going ships. So, I mean, the system is great. I got it for families.
I'd like to
I want-
approve it just because I feel like law enforcement needs to have everything that the bad guys have.
I think it's a great idea. I just don't know if it falls squarely within the mission of the Port Authority to have an expenditure like this. It seems to me to be more appropriate for the county to be funding this since it's multiple law enforcement agencies would be utilizing it. I'm just not sure it falls within the mission of the Port Authority. I just want to make sure that we're making a fiscally prudent
It has
decision.
a lot of river.
And we buy your boat, we bought your boat. This is really an addendum to the boat, isn't it?
Have a lot of boating accidents in the river.
Yeah.
We lose people in the river. It can be used better to find them than what we have now.
Just as an example to everybody, we had a fellow that was perfectly alive when he went out, and he got his ankle wrapped up in the anchor road. This was north of the Volano Bridge, and he was down there wrapped with the anchor, and you could look all day for him. And like I said, it was quite a while, maybe the next day, and he finally floated up. But he was just down there. With that, we would have seen him right off.
Yeah, had
We knew where he went down, just couldn't find him.
Had we
Yeah.
known where to look, he would have been
Yeah.
visible, yes.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
I also agree that this is a worthwhile piece of equipment. My concern is that it's really expensive. It's like
It is, and this is
5% of our yearly budget.
It's actually the least expensive, second least expensive model out there.
Is that, to Commissioner West's question, is there not an opportunity for this to be a multi-agency funding situation? Could you go to the county and ask them for half, and we could give you
Honestly, I
half?
have not asked anyone. Could I? Probably I could. I came to you because I work inside the port's jurisdiction, 99% of my time.
Right.
Well, we
But
also have.
this is going to be used outside of the port's
can
jurisdiction
be,
quite a
yes,
bit,
sir.
right? So that's my other concern, and that also goes to, Commissioner West's concern. If even 25% of the time it's out in the river, then, it does make sense for us to at least share this cost with another agency rather than taking it on entirely. My preference or my thinking would be, I would be in favor of putting some money towards this, but I really would like to hear if there's an opportunity for other agencies to put some money towards it as well.
We also have $280,000 or more than that just sitting in a fund for unspecified marine projects. So that would fit easily into that budget that's already been committed and set aside.
Sergeant Whitehead, I'm right. It's about $25,000, $26,000, somewhere in that range.
Sorry, I can't see without my glasses.
25,464.
25,464, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
this is,
the reason I would support this is because the request is coming from the city of St. Augustine, and all they would is share it, but the city of St. Augustine is totally within our district. So, we do have a motion and a second.
Yeah, so we can go ahead and vote on that then. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay. So was that 3 in favor and 2 opposed? Is that right? Chris, were you a yes?
Yeah, I was aye.
Okay, so
Aye.
3 in favor and Commissioner West and I were opposed. All right, so motion passes. Good. Next item on the agenda, commercial airboat operations. Commissioner West.
Yes, I had a constituent contact me about commercial airboat operations running up and down Moses Creek. You've got a lot of kayakers going up and down there, and they are just blasting through multiple times a day, extremely loud, scaring off wildlife, disrupting the kayakers. I personally haven't witnessed it, but I have noticed a sign advertising fishing and airboat tours, commercial airboat tours, right there, catty corner from Smokin' D's at 206 and US 1. It's a 386 area code, so this is a not a local, coming in from Putnam, trailing his airboat. And I don't know what, if anything, we can do. I don't know if this is the equivalent of, a really just loud, obnoxious, souped-up vehicle. You don't have any jurisdiction over it, but I'd like to be able to report back to this constituent that I at least brought it up.
Do you know where they're launching it?
I don't.
It's a state conservation area, right?
It is.
Who is responsible for administering those? Is it?
Water Management District.
It's water man, okay.
St. Joseph Water Management District.
So we should get in touch with them, because I don't even think Moses Creek is in our port jurisdiction, is it? It's on the other side of the intercoastal down there. It's just outside it, right?
Lieutenant Steve Zukowski, Fish and Wildlife. Moses Creek is on the, excuse me, west side intercoastal waterway, just north of 206. So that is the state lands in there, the Water Management District is what it is. In terms of what can be done, we do have one boat on Lieutenant Dack's squad that could be able to get in there. That's a tough place to get into, because even at mid-tide, because of all the oyster bars that are just under the water, it's like being in a pinball machine if you're a boat. Guys, your airboat, do you have your airboat yet?
Yeah, but you got that fancy new airboat.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta take that, crack some skulls for us.
Right?
So yes, we should have the airboat operational. We all go through the training next month, and then we'll have it operational.
Okay, if you could just check it out.
Certainly.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was outside our
There are two
jurisdiction.
airboats locally. One fellow lives down in St. Augustine Shores, and he actually launches it right out of his backyard. He just pulls it up into his backyard, and then he goes down. And then there is another individual that trailers one typically, both of which operate almost exclusively in that area that you're speaking of, in the flats back there. We have seen them. Until this airboat that we get, we don't have the capabilities to get to them. However, once we have the airboat that's operational, we should be able to be back there. Now, if they are operating in a careless or reckless manner around the kayakers and so forth, we can address that in reference to the noise of the airboat. I don't think there's much that we can do for that.
Okay.
We will also have an airboat to enforce that.
We'll compound a problem.
So that could be an issue in and of itself.
Well, if they're doing professional hires, I mean,
Right.
they'd have to have a business license and a captain's license.
If they have passengers for hire, paying passengers or some sort of compensation, that's accurate. What I can recommend, that's not a regulated water body in terms of any boating regulatory zones or anything like that in there. So it's wide open. So what you have to look at in terms of enforcement is then careless or reckless operation, in violation of NAV rules that don't result in an accident or may result in an accident. I mean, Sheriff's Office, we can look into it. What would be helpful would be a description of the boat, the FL numbers off the boat, so we could proactively contact the people and do an inquiry before they get out there again. That is a concern. Most people back in that water body, particularly the further west you go, because there is some good fishing in there.
Yeah.
I've checked a few people in the campgrounds there a couple of times from land. They're not expecting to see motorized vessels there, maybe above, like a 16-foot john boat with a kicker on it or something like that. So people have to share the waterways, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes what happens is people with the larger boats say, small boats, get out of my way. It's unfortunate, but that's sometimes the perspective or disposition of people operating out there. But if you can get us
Okay.
a description, a photo, the registration number would be fantastic, then we could be proactive about it.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That sign you said you saw?
I did. I'll get a picture of that
And
too.
it's, they're advertising.
Right. They are advertising for, okay.
Steve, you're
But if
probably
they've
gonna want
got a
to,
six-pack, there's nothing we can do. I mean, as long as they're licensed, have a six-pack, there's really nothing we can do about it, right?
I'm just gonna report back to the guys, so.
Yeah.
Right, we'll talk.
And sometimes people exaggerate the extent of what they consider careless or reckless operation. It's just annoying maybe that they were back there and they had a nice little tranquil, peaceful place, and now we've got motorized vessels in there, maybe conducting perfectly legitimate business. So our perspective would be, well, I'll speak for FWC, I won't speak for deputy, but I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. We'll talk with them about sharing and boating courtesy. And that if you look out for small craft such as kayaks, canoes, paddle boards, things like that, and then bring it down. Because actually NAV rules do call for that that's prudent seamanship that falls under NAV Rule 2 and some subsequent ones also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to stay up here?
Well, I was going to say our next item of business also, Commissioner West, is no wake zone in the vicinity of the 206 bridge, and I believe.
I might as well stay up.
Yeah, you might as well stay up there.
So I had a request for someone to put no wake zone from 206 all the way south to Devil's Elbow. Apparently, there are a couple of ramps. There's a Green Street ramp.
Right,
And then there's also a couple of condos that also are heavily impacted by the large wake being thrown around. And then there's also Ganung's Fish Camp. So I know it's a complicated, convoluted process, getting a no-wake zone. The request explicitly was that this board draft a letter to at least initiate the process to get that established. I've been hearing about this particular issue quite a bit. It's really starting to damage property, including seawalls down there. There's a lot more increased boat traffic, and the boats are getting bigger and bigger. So the request was that this board, draft a letter to whatever appropriate agency it might be.
It's FWC,
Would it be
right?
FWC or the Coast Guard? It's so confusing to me.
It would be us because it's intercoastal waterway.
Okay.
Our
So,
boating and waterways section up in Tallahassee.
And what's the criteria? You told us this before.
Yeah, you're not going to like it.
Refresh our memory.
Well, let me not prejudge that. Let me make prejudgment there.
It's
Again,
fueling,
it's-
right?
Pardon?
It's fueling.
Few things.
And, yeah,
The philosophy has to do with homeowners and their seawalls deteriorating, that sort of thing. That's a criteria that's not going to be considered because there's a balancing act between the rights of boaters and people who want to live right on the water. There are certain things, just like people who want to live right on the beach, you have to have certain types of hurricane insurance, things like that. So that's a criteria that probably would not be considered, degradation of seawalls or something like that, or your personal dock, a private dock. To establish a slow speed or idle speed zone, the criteria is going to be something, for example, a part of infrastructure like a bridge, like 206, 312, something like that, where your line of sight, your vision can be obscured from vessels passing and going, and particularly going underneath, and you're going to have smaller vessels fishing a lot of times under these bridges. That's why in this county at least, and pretty much everywhere I've worked around the state, but in this county in particular, all our bridges, starting with Palm Valley, all the way down to 206, it's either an idle or slow speed zone, 500 feet north and south. Some of them extend a little more. For example, Bridge Alliance extends a little further because of the city marina and the fueling. Okay, so if there is infrastructure there, that's one consideration, like a bridge. If there is a marina on the waterway that dispenses fuel, that's another consideration, that the marina can request and petition to have a zone put in front of, or so many feet north and south of their fueling dock. Those are the two main ones. If it is an area where the waterway has some particular hazards, such as we've been talking about down there in Matanzas, where due to environmental factors, a channel starts to narrow and more boaters are getting squeezed into a smaller space where there's congestion. And then we're issuing a lot of citations or warnings, we meaning law enforcement on the water, issuing a lot of warnings or citations, or a more concrete criteria would be we're seeing an increase in boating accidents, then that would also be a consideration for a zone.
Does a boat ramp come into play at all?
Usually not, usually not. It can, if you had the other criteria of the narrowing of a waterway and the congestion and things like that, but usually not on that. It can. So extending it from 206 all the way down to Devil's Elbow, the factors that are going to be weighed in is the balance power of boater rights versus property owner rights on the shoreline, and then the consistency with how other areas of state, if there are any precedents around a state that have been set that are similar to that sort of request, and they're going to look at that. They meaning our agency would look at FWC.
Does Devil's Elbow sell fuel?
Mr. Miles does not.
How did they get the no-wake zone? Would be the question I'd ask.
All right, let me be diplomatic about this. I worked here as an officer back in the 90s. It was Old Marine Patrol then, 95, 96. When I patrolled up and down, there was no zone there before. I went to another part of the state. I took a promotion investigator. I worked down in southwest Florida. Then I left the state for a while at National Marine Fisheries, and I came back in 2001, the end of 2001, and lo and behold, there's a slow speed zone there. How did it happen? It's probably public record somewhere, but I do not know the request and the petition as to how it got granted without the fuel being there. My supposition, and again, I don't know the whole history behind it, my supposition is that the channel there swings, it narrows and swings close to Mr. Miles' this fish camp over there, putting the boat ramp and the floating dock in close proximity to boaters who would be transiting north on the eastern side. So that is my supposition. I haven't done the research, and I don't want to do any speculating here on that, because I don't know all the history, because when Mr. Miles put in that petitioner request, I was not working here at the time, and so I don't have all the information.
Well, if he got it, I guess my only request is that hopefully this board will support it, but I would like to embark on the process of getting it started. And perhaps we can point to Devil's Elbow as an example why there should potentially be exceptions. But I've had this request by numerous people now, and I realize it may not meet all the criteria, but if we can at least apply for that status and get rejected, at least I would be able to tell them, look, we tried, couldn't do it, you didn't meet the criteria, and be done with it.
And FWC will be on notice at that point that there's at least some political pressure to get it done, so maybe in the future.
Yeah, I believe what you probably want to do is possibly start off with an email to our people up in the Boating and Waterway section. The Boating and Waterway section is bifurcated, it's split into two, big word, SAT word today.
I know what bifurcated
Yes,
means.
it's split into two sections. And one of them has to do with, there's one dealing with the waterways, and another one's basically essentially boating accidents, statistics, education, things like that.
So who would I
I'm
contact?
trying to I'll find out, I'll look on my laptop right now, and/or I'll make a call, so by the end of the meeting,
Okay.
you'll have a contact.
Do I have authorization from the board to proceed with that, or should I just go rogue?
I'm not sure you even need authorization.
Okay.
It's just for informational purposes at this point, I think.
Okay.
So.
And you might want to, if you can, you make a call up there, if I can get a contact for you, and you can let them know you spoke to me.
Okay.
I know Well, I used to know two of the captains up there. Now I think I just know one of the captains up there, so.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a cousin that's at St. John's Family Dentistry right now, just got out of 4 hours of surgery, dental surgery. I need to go pick her up, so I ask to be excused.
Oh, yes, of course, you
The
can be
run was
excused.
finished anyway.
That's right, yes. So just let the record state that Commissioner Rivers is heading out here before we address this last agenda item under new business, which is G, data on dredge project, Volano Beach. Commissioner Flowers.
Yes, just a very quick one. Carl Blow brought that to us originally, the dredging of the Volano boat ramp there at the base of the Usina Bridge. And I believe you're right, ma'am, from the county, $250,000 was the project. A constituent called me and said, Sandy, you seem to have forgotten that when you first approved that, the $250,000, we approved part of that, of course, project, that you had asked Carl Blow then and there at that first meeting if we were going to have to remove the soil because it's so expensive. And Carl said, yes, we're going to have to remove the soil, which is why it was $250,000. And then we just had, I guess 2 months ago now, they came back and wanted another $200,000 and said, it's because we have to remove the soil. Now, I'm sure that y'all can see the problem there. In my mind, they took a $250 plus a $200,000 project. That's $450,000. They broke it up in two pieces so they didn't have to bid it out. That's against the law. I just want to change my vote on that project. I want to see that dredge desperately, but I do not want to see projects broken up so they can be given to continuing contractors instead of properly bid out. And like I said, we were told the 250 included. And if you can go back and listen to that, Carl Blow stood there and I asked the question, I went back to notes and that constituent is right. They told us when they came for that 250, our portion of it, that they knew that they were going to have to remove the dirt and take it to Jacksonville. And then they came back, almost doubled the project. So I think they just split it up so they didn't have to bid it out. How can I change my vote for that?
You can't.
You can't, but you can register your opposition, which you just have.
Hey, I saw people down at the city change their vote when they got new information, so why would city commissioners be able to change their vote and not me?
If that is true, perhaps they know something else. I don't know that that's true. I know you cannot change your vote.
Okay,
As Chairman
well,
Brown has said, you may
okay.
note your current opposition to it based on what you believe to be
Please
new
note my
information,
opposition to
but
that
you
on the
cannot
public
change your
record.
vote.
And make sure that gets into the minutes, if you don't mind, that this was a $450,000 project, broke up into two pieces to keep it from being bid.
I
Like I
think Sydney
said.
has
Have
some
someone from the
light
camp.
to shed on that.
Just to clarify just a few things, I think it's getting a little bit blurred. When we first came for the match to apply to find, we had not gone out to bid at that time. I think the conversation, and this is just my memory, we were talking about the Butler West dredge, about the soil testing. At that time, the soil had not been tested in the Volano Basin, so we did not know. So when I came back this past time and asked for more funding, between those two meetings, we had put out the scope, and it wasn't a continuing contractor. That's the bid that they gave us back, and that was the pricing, because they had done the soil testing during the permit process. So that's what the project number increased to. So when I came last meeting to see if any of the other funds, if you guys would like to partner further and offer more funding, because of the previous vote would be up to the $90,000. So you voted yes
We
in
got it up
favor
to
of that.
90, right?
It went to our board today to cover the remaining funds. And so that's what was passed. So now they will go into negotiations with the contractor. The contract has not been signed at this time.
Okay, it's important to me, Carl said he explained it to me anyways this way, that because of all the bait that's dumped there, shrimp, et cetera, it's going to test as high arsenic. So again, he said they were fully aware of that. So it's very disconcerting to me that we come back with an almost doubled amount on something that Carl was aware of.
I can't speak to Carl.
I'm
so I don't
saying,
know.
he
He's not
is,
here.
and find is, I mean, he was over this, he's the one that came to us and was talking to us about the project, which is why I asked him, is this because they're going to have to remove the soil and it's on the public record? And he said yes, so maybe there's some confusion there.
Right.
Because
I
it
think
sure
he was-
looks like it's a $450,000 project now, and it is.
And he was, I think.
And
when
somehow he
spoke,
knew
was
the
just
soil was
supporting-
bad and was going to have to be removed, so.
I think he was stating in this area, arsenic is generally found in the
No,
soil.
ma'am, this was specifically about this vote for the $60,000. Just so, it wasn't about Butler. It was about that, and I specifically asked the question about the removal of the soil from that boat landing. So facts are important.
I think the other part to that was the county needed to decide if we were going to leave the soil on the Volano boat ramp parking lot to dry out.
What's wrong, Jim? Facts aren't funny.
Just got a headache.
Okay.
Staff decided to not close down the boat ramp for several months, as what happened to Butler West. So then the transporting of the soil to a different landfill, since it could not be a local one, was Jacksonville, and that's why the price was.
I'll ask Carl to see how it was. He seemed to know that so early and nobody else did. So he was here speaking for it, and that's something a constituent was very concerned about, over $200,000. Thank you.
Okay. Public comment, we no longer have any members of the public. Comments by commissioners, Tom is not here. Chris, did you have a comment? I do not. Jane, do you have any comments? Sandy?
Nope.
Great. Next meeting will be July the 20th, right? July 20th.
Do you have anything you want on the agenda before that is carrying over?
I don't believe so. Besides, Sandy said that she would like to have more time to address the digitizing records
I'll try to get
proposal.
that for the next agenda, but I'll let you know if that's okay before then. And also, I'll get that stuff for the Army Corps, Mr. Hanna's information and prices of gravel.
I won't be here.
Okay. No, Commissioner West. There being no other business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.